Hey everybody, bad news. Today, you can tell by the thumbnail and title what we're talking about. It's why I decided to sell my E60 550i and some of the reasons that I really enjoyed owning this car, as well as, obviously the reasons that I had to let this one go. The E60 is a really important car to me because it's actually one of the cars that I bought when I first started out flipping cars. It's one of my biggest cars that I flipped into. I bought an E60 545i and I really enjoyed that car. It was so luxurious. It was sport interior with a 6-speed manual transmission on the V8. Now, it was a pre-LCI model, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. It had all the features that I wanted, and being kind of like a younger kid at the time, it felt like a really baller car to own. I eventually ended up selling it just because I felt like I couldn't afford to drive that car. It didn't really feel like the car that I needed at the time. I needed to get into a truck, and so that's what I ended up doing, and I had to let go of that car. But I have so much respect for the E60 platform, and this car is like the upgraded version of that thing. So this is the 550i, it's the facelift version. That means it's got the upgraded power plant, which has like upgraded parts from the original N62. This is the technical update motor, and it also has the better transmission, as well as a completely different interior, which looks tons better. And on this car, it's actually entire black M Sport interior with the black headliner package, which you don't see a lot on BMWs. Honestly, I got so lucky picking up this car. Look at how mint it looks in here, and it's even got the rear sunshade package, including the automatic folding one that comes up the rear window here. So it's basically a fully loaded 550i. Like I said, it is automatic. Now, being that this is a 2008 model, it's not gonna have the CIC upgraded iDrive unit. Instead, it's gonna have the triple C, which is a little bit more old school style, but it has a lot of the same features, just doesn't look as pretty. You can upgrade it to a radio that has like Android and CarPlay, so the next owner can definitely do that. But just look at how good this interior looks, and keep in mind this car has 160,000 miles now. I actually bought it at 158, so I'm proud to say I put 2,000 miles on this thing, and it has been so good to me since that initial service that we did just a couple months ago. Now let's pull open the hood, because I want to talk to you guys about this power plant right here. This is the 550i, although the engine is technically 4.8 liters. It's not a true 5-liter engine. And this car has a modified intake here. This is, I think, the InGen intake. I'm not sure, but it's got this nice snorkel that comes out to the side here. And I'm not sure if it's got really an improvement over the factory airbox, because the factory airbox does have a good cold air intake system. But regardless, this motor is an awesome power plant. They put this in, I think, the 7 series, so 750i, but more importantly, they put it in the X5. And to me, this feels like a truck motor, a lot of torque down low and power throughout the rev range. So just a great all-around motor that gives you what you need in terms of power when you need it. So it's very responsive, even though it only has one single throttle body, whereas like the 5-liter motor in the M5, it has 8 individual throttle bodies. That's what makes it so responsive. This thing is still very responsive, I will say that. And besides just the motor, from a drivetrain perspective, suspension and handling, this car has the active dynamic sway bars, so that has like an adjustable stiffness and helps during cornering to help keep the car flat. This car also has been lowered, but it's on the factory suspension, and I'll tell you that it does still feel great. So factory suspension is the way to go. I would say if you have to upgrade it in the future, just get factory shocks and go to lowering springs. And then as far as exterior styling, you guys see this thing is absolutely beautiful. All of the technology and the design that went into this car definitely shows, from the front adaptive headlights to the overall styling of the car, which I would say still competes with a lot of cars nowadays which have similar body lines and try to compete with old BMWs. So I guess so far I've kind of described this thing as the perfect cruiser. It would be a really good daily as well, because it's so classy, comfortable. When you start turning up your music in there, you kind of just get lost in the ambience inside the car. So you'd think that this would be the perfect car to own, and you might say, why would I want to sell it? I have enjoyed driving it a lot. I did put 2,000 miles on it, but why am I deciding to sell it now, besides just the simple answer of, oh, I need the money? Well, the answer is, there's a few things that I have already dealt with with this platform in the past, which I don't want to revisit. And you could say that maybe they're haunting me, but it's just, you kind of get sick of doing the same thing over and over and over. So I'd rather pass it on. So the N62 platform is known for its common issues, and I did make a video previously complaining about some of the common things that you run into, like the alternator bracket, which loves to leak, the valve covers, which are just a pain to change because of how big this motor is and how tightly crammed into the engine bay, and then the multitude of technology systems like the active dynamic sway bars that I described before, those tending to leak. Sometimes they can even fail. It's just all these problems in the technology that the car comes with. Sometimes it ends up not being worth it. So for instance, I'm just gonna go ahead and check the gas mileage and show you guys. We'll turn the key on, and it does have comfort access, which is a really cool feature. But like I said, why don't we go ahead and check on that gas mileage. It is low on gas right now, but 15.2 miles to the gallon. Obviously it needs gas, so it's angry, it doesn't want to show me everything. But look at that too, another one of my problems, the airbag light. So ignoring the airbag light for a second, let's talk about that. 16 miles to the gallon with the way that I drive. Now, obviously you can extend that if you're going to be driving more highway and you're not going to be on and off throttle, because this car is pretty aerodynamic, you know, just by the looks of it. And on the highway it would get probably 20, 22, maybe 24 miles to the gallon. Just something to think about if you want to invest in one of these cars, is that if you're going to be daily driving around the city, you're going to be getting pretty bad gas mileage and you're going to have to pay for that. And this is a 93 octane car, so you can't just go ahead and put 87 in it unless you have some sort of octane booster that you're willing to trust. But 93 octane or 91, depending on what states you're going to be living in. But that's just one of the reasons that I don't think this is the right car for me, is because lately I've been thinking more in a, you know, sustainable mindset. It's kind of silly to say, I don't want to seem like a hippie or anything, but I would love to have a car that has better gas mileage for a daily driver, period. That's what it comes down to. I don't want to spend a ton of money on gas, and I also don't want to just be burning, you know, fossil fuels for no reason if I could stand to get something that gets better gas mileage. So that's why I really would prefer to drive like a 325i or a 525i. It's because those motors, they'll get like 24 city and 28 or 30 miles to the gallon highway, and that little difference, you know, is something that's really important to me. So now let's talk about this airbag passenger restraint system fault. You know, you can go ahead and make it go away on the iDrive system here, but it's just going to keep popping up on the display here because, and I finally figured it out, folks, the airbag control module, which is right here underneath the console, has faulted out. What I did was I recoded the module thinking that maybe, you know, the coding options were messed up due to like a low battery situation. So I recoded it, and then it gave me two faults for the battery lead monitoring for the negative and the positive side. And since the battery lead monitoring is literally measured inside the airbag control module, it tells me that it's probably failed, that, you know, that thing is starting to short circuit itself and it needs to be replaced, coded, programmed to the car. And after that, I'm sure that you'd have no more airbag lights, but for now it is pretty disappointing to have to deal with that light on there, I have to say. And so that's probably where my rant is going to end, because honestly, those are my main complaints with the car. Is number one, the engine problems, which I've already dealt with before on this engine, so I don't want to have to deal with again. And it's not so much that these things are like common problems as they're just sort of labor and time intensive when you do have to fix them. I'd say the one thing I would be curious to wonder if it's been changed before on this car is the valley pan gasket, as well as the water pipe that's in the center valley of the V8. That's kind of known to fail on these cars. The valley pan can start to leak from the gasket, but even worse is if the coolant pipe that goes underneath it, that gasket has a ring that if it fails, you have to change the front timing cover of the car. Or you could get like a certain fix kit for it, which you can do just from the top. It saves a lot of time, but it's still not a fun job to do. And on this car, the front timing cover is leaking, so I would say you probably want to do both at the same time in an upcoming service. And then, like I said, number two is going to be those electrical problems. So you're going to have to deal with that, you know, faulty footwell modules, airbag modules, just kind of electrical things going wrong. But the nice thing is that you're tending to find more of these E60s at the junkyard, which is something that I'm not having a problem with the E39. You can always find those at the junkyard. But the E60s are starting to pop up more and more. I'm seeing a lot of pre-LCI cars, but hopefully more LCI cars will show up, because it'll be really cool to get some of the parts off of those cars if you own one of these. So let's get down to the nitty gritty, shall we? This car, you all know how much I purchased it for. $800 is an amazing deal. Came with even a fresh battery, which was nice. But you know, we limped it home. We replaced the crankshaft position sensor. We realized that it had some cool links. It was behind on service, and we got it fixed up. The car sat for a long time. It's got, you know, damage on the sunroof here. We tried to buff it out on the trunk, but it wasn't so successful. It just kind of made it look a little bit better. Ultimately, you know, it does probably need to be repainted professionally, but the rest of the car looks really good. Probably, I think the hood's been repainted before because it just has some fisheyes in it. So overall, this car is in great condition. You know, has a couple of quirks here and there, but I did decide to sell it to a subscriber actually by the name of Ray. He's actually been with the channel since before 1,000 subscribers, and he's a member actively of our Patreon as well. So congratulations to Ray, and we sold it to him for $6,500, which I think is a great deal for this car. I paid a lot more for my 545i back in the day, and currently the car market is pretty crazy. This car, like I said, it's not perfect. He's aware that there's a couple of DIYs that he's gonna have to take care of here and there, and you know, maybe long term take care of the paint to make this thing a really nice car. Otherwise, car's in really good shape. Just keep up with, you know, oil changes, fluid changes. Try to replace things preventatively before they fail. And you know, these BMWs, they'll go a long way for you. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the video today, and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Be sure to leave a like as well, and subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't yet. And who knows, maybe I will pick up another E60 in the future. Honestly, I don't think I want to get into another 550, but if you guys have an E61 out there, I would love to get my hands on a 535 Xi wagon. I think that would definitely be a cool build for the channel. But anyways, I hope everyone has an amazing day, and as always, we will see you in the next video.